Right?
All right, Rob, speaking of doing their thing, man, the Dallas Mavericks up 3-0 on the Minnesota Timberwolves. And you got something to say to these T-Wolves.
Chris, this is what I'm saying. And you alluded to this way earlier. People shouted you down. There were people who said, we weren't watching them and they were different, and everybody, we saw it. I think inside the NBA crew, Chris, all picked Minnesota to move on, right?
I picked Minnesota.
No, I know.
Too.
It was overwhelming, though, is what I'm just trying to say, right? Wasn't it overwhelming?
Right. Yep.
Like, because people bought into that they were going to buck the odds. They were going to be different. That usually, Chris, is a pathway, right? That usually you have to take. And people looked at them and said, well, they knocked off Denver. Wow, people kind of overlooked the 3 losses in a row after they were up 2-0 and a couple at home. And because they won. Because they won. And we talk about it all the time. Winning covers up a lot of things. But I think it's pretty clear. The Minnesota Timberwolves are frauds.
Wow.
Frauds with a capital F, yes, on Memorial Day.
They can't just lose a series. They got to be frauds?
They got to be fraudulent. Only from this standpoint, Chris. They weren't ready. I know they look ready, but they weren't ready. And these games have proven that they aren't ready. It ain't like they got run out of the gym and they weren't.
The games are close.
That's what I'm saying, Chris. These are games that they were definitely in and could have won, and they didn't when it mattered most. That's why I look at this. If they got blown out by 30 and really didn't belong in the gym because they got lucky and stumbled into the conference finals. But you wouldn't have called them
frauds if they were getting demolished in this series.
No. It would be a different kind of fraudulent. This here, This is different because I think people really thought that the Ant-Man was there, that he was going to take this next step. They looked at it. Chris, you talked about it earlier. I remember when we talked about the series with Denver. What can you do to stop these guys? You know what I mean? I don't know what changes can be made, or adjustments to stop. That's what they look like. They look like world beaters at one point. Like what could you do to stop this from them getting to the finals without having to go through the normal progression that we've talked about in the NBA and we've seen? All I'm saying is when I say frauds, Chris, they weren't ready for this party. They weren't ready for a trip to the NBA Finals. It really looked good. It felt good for a lot of people. I picked Dallas. I just didn't buy into them. And I'm not saying that I didn't like Anthony Edwards or you know what I mean, or what they had put together. They beat Denver, the defending champs. They get credit. You get credit for that. But I just don't think that they were really ready to take that next step. And I think we could find the tape where we talked about it, you too, and you changed your mind on them because I think of what you saw them do to Denver. But you originally, Chris, and tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, you originally didn't think they were going to be able to get there because of this.
You talking about when the playoffs started?
Yeah, like that they were going to be able to get there.
My question during the season, as Minnesota and Oklahoma City were running through the Western
Exactly.
and
That's what I'm
leading the
talking
Western
about.
Conference.
That's what I'm talking about.
My question was, are they for real? Because they're young. And OKC went down in 6 to Dallas, and they'll be better next year for it. Minnesota looks like they're going down. I mean, nobody's ever come back from 3-0, Rob. I do think this thing is over. We'll see if they get a game or two.
Right. Not that they're going to get – it's not a definite sweep. Right. But it's not definite. They could win a game, but are they going to win 4 straight? No. It's just not going to happen.
I think those two teams have proven they're for real. No doubt about that. And, Rob – and I knew this, but I thought because Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, a nice supporting cast, that they'd be able to overcome it. But the fact of the matter is, Rob, never in the history of the NBA, which goes back, we know, more than 75 years, has a 22-year-old player led a team to the championship. This goes all the way back to George Mikan and before him. Never. The only one close, Tim Duncan was 23 when the Spurs won it in 1999. But he had David Robinson, who was still, right there probably at the end of his prime. Of course, Kobe and Magic Johnson won championships young. Kobe 22, Magic 20. Kobe might have been 21, I think, and Magic was 20. But they weren't the best players on their team. Kobe had Shaq and Magic had Kareem. And so it's never happened. And I was not thinking Anthony Edwards is better than those players or even on their level. But I thought as the team was good, and even though he was the best player, he still had a really good supporting cast. And Rob, we're seeing right now why no 22-year-old has ever led
100%.
Because he's still trying to figure it out, right? He's trying to figure out how aggressive to be. When do I try to take over? When do I get my teammates involved? He's learning as we speak. And also, Rob, he is, and by his own admission, exhausted. And when you look at him, even as he was playing well in game 3, it certainly had a stretch. His body language, he looks tired to me. And so a lot of people say, he's 22, how's he tired? Rob, he's never played this many games.
No.
Never, not, and certainly not, you can say, they're playing on. No, these types of games where the emotional intensity is off the charts, he ain't used to this. And so this is why nobody his age ever has been able to lead the team to the championship. Now, I will say this, Rob, I don't know if he'll win a ring, but I think he'll win a ring. And if that happens, Rob, I do think whenever it is, this series, we will look at this like Kobe's air ball in Utah, even though he hasn't played that bad at Anthony Edwards. We'll look at it like Jordan, the Jordan rules when Detroit had to teach him, right? Beat him up and get him tougher. We'll look at Isaiah, throwing the ball away and Larry Bird stole it. Like, these are moments that everyone's had to go through. This, I think, we'll see if there's more before he wins. This, I think, is his moment. LeBron getting swept by the Spurs in 2007. This is that moment for Anthony Edwards. Oh, and he also getting absolutely zero help, Rob, from his second best player, Karl Anthony Towns, who's shooting 27% from the field and 13% from three.
Who looked unstoppable, Chris, early on in the postseason. Looked like, my God, boy, at that turnaround. But anyway,